golden glow of a setting sun bathed Maple Street in warm hues, its light filtering through the canopy of oak trees that lined the quiet suburban road. The Johnson family's backyard was a mosaic of vibrant life, the rhythmic crackle of the grill, the soft hum of cicadas, and the playful giggles of Zoe and Marcus as they darted barefoot across the lawn. Serena's laughter rang out as she balanced a tray of lemonade, the aroma of her homemade cornbread mingling with the smoky scent of ribs. It was a portrait of warmth and belonging, a moment suspended in time. Yet, beneath the surface of this idyllic evening, a quiet storm brewed. Michael Johnson, the towering figure at the grill, exuded calm confidence. His easy smile masked the weight of his new role as Oak Ridge's chief of police, a position he had yet to reveal to his new neighbors. The Johnsons, new to Maple Street, had hoped to build connections unclouded by titles or assumptions. But not everyone on the block shared their vision of community. From her window across the street, Karen Whitfield watched with narrowed eyes. Her gaze lingered on the lively gathering, her mind constructing grievances from the innocent sounds of celebration. To her, the Johnsons' presence was an affront, their joy an unwelcome disruption in what she saw as her pristine corner of Oak Ridge. Her hand hovered over her phone, hesitation giving way to a simmering resolve. As Karen's call reached the police dispatcher, the gears of an unseen machine began to turn. A patrol car, its lights flashing against the twilight, rolled toward the Johnson residence. The officers inside were oblivious to the irony of their destination, unaware that they were about to confront their own chief. In the backyard, the laughter faltered as the car approached, the festive atmosphere replaced by a quiet unease. Michael stepped forward, his expression calm but his posture firm, as the officers exited their vehicle. The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air, a collision of prejudice and authority that would reverberate far beyond Maple Street. The story unfolds in the sprawling city of Avarice, a metropolis suspended between towering cliffs and connected by intricate bridges of glass and steel. The air hums with the energy of floating markets and airships, while below, the undercity thrives in shadowy contrast, its labyrinthine alleys lit by bioluminescent fungi. Avarice is a marvel of ancient technology and magic, where the old and new coexist uneasily, and tensions simmer between its upper and lower tiers. Kale is a resourceful scavenger from the undercity, known for his uncanny ability to decipher ancient relics. Orphaned as a child, he is survived by his wit and a sharp sense of loyalty to his younger sister, Mira. Mira, though blind, possesses a rare gift. She can perceive the flow of magic, a skill that makes her a target for those seeking power. The siblings share an unbreakable bond, their relationship forged through hardship and mutual reliance. In the upper city, Lady Saris, a disillusioned aristocrat, secretly funds expeditions to uncover the truth about Avarice's origins. Haunted by her family's dark legacy, she seeks redemption but is bound by the constraints of her status. Her path crosses with Kale's when he uncovers a relic that could unravel the city's hidden history. Each character is driven by survival, redemption, or discovery, their fates intertwined in a city on the brink of upheaval. As the officers stepped into the Johnsons' backyard, the hum of tension met Michael's steady voice as he calmly revealed his identity as Oak Ridge's incoming chief of police, leaving the officers stunned. Karen, watching from her window, froze as her hasty call unraveled into a public reckoning, exposing her prejudice and sparking a neighborhood conversation Oak Ridge could no longer avoid. The small coastal town of Windmere awakens to the arrival of a mysterious storm that disrupts its tranquil rhythm. Among its residents, Clara, a determined marine biologist, dreams of uncovering the secrets of a rare dolphin species rumored to inhabit the nearby waters. Meanwhile, Ethan, a reclusive inventor, seeks to perfect his underwater drone technology to map the ocean floor. Their individual goals collide when Clara discovers that Ethan's experiments are inadvertently disturbing the dolphin's habitat. Clara confronts Ethan, sparking a tense but intriguing partnership. She needs his technology to track the elusive creatures, while he reluctantly agrees, seeing an opportunity to test his inventions in real-world conditions. Their collaboration begins with mutual skepticism, but shared moments of discovery gradually soften their guarded exteriors. Clara's passion for marine life challenges Ethan's pragmatic approach, while his innovative thinking pushes her to consider unconventional methods. As they venture deeper into the project, they encounter unforeseen obstacles. A powerful local developer plans to build a resort along the coastline, threatening the delicate ecosystem. Clara and Ethan must navigate bureaucratic red tape and rally the town's support, all while racing against time to gather evidence of the dolphin's existence. Amid the tension, subtle subplots emerge. Ethan's estranged relationship with his brother resurfaces, and Clara grapples with self-doubt stemming from a past failure. The morning began like any other in the quiet town of Ashwick, with the hum of life settling into its predictable rhythm. However, the routine was shattered when a deafening explosion echoed from the old train station, sending plumes of black smoke spiraling into the sky. The once idle platform, long abandoned and forgotten, was suddenly the center of chaos. Crowds gathered, whispers of disbelief and fear rippling through the air. No one had seen it coming, least of all Clara, a local journalist who had been covering a mundane story at the nearby market. Rushing to the scene, Clara's instincts kicked in, but what she found was far from ordinary. Amid the wreckage lay a strange metallic device, humming faintly with an eerie light. The authorities cordoned off the area, but Clara caught a glimpse of something that sent a chill down her spine. Symbols etched into the device that matched drawings from her late father's journal. He had spent years obsessing over a mysterious artifact he claimed could alter reality itself. As the town grappled with panic, Clara felt an undeniable pull to uncover the truth. The explosion wasn't random, it was a message. With her father's cryptic notes as her only guide, she realized she was already entangled in something far bigger than she could comprehend. The officers stepped out of their patrol car, their boots crunching softly against the gravel driveway. Their faces betrayed no immediate hostility, but their presence alone was enough to cast a shadow over the Johnsons' festive evening. Michael, ever composed, wiped his hands on his apron and walked toward them, his heart steady but his mind racing. Serena, standing near the patio table, instinctively pulled Zoe and Marcus closer, her eyes darting between her husband and the officers. Inside the Whitfield home, Karen watched the scene unfold with a twisted sense of satisfaction. She sipped her iced tea, her lips curling into a smirk as she imagined the disruption she had orchestrated. Yet, her husband, Greg, a quiet man with a penchant for staying out of trouble, sat uneasily in his armchair. "Karen, maybe you should have let it go," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the air conditioner. She shot him a glare, dismissing his concern with a wave of her hand. Back on the street, another neighbor, Priya Patel, peeked through her blinds. Unlike Karen, Priya had welcomed the Johnsons with open arms. A second-generation immigrant herself, she understood the challenges of being new in a tight-knit community. She debated whether to step outside, her conscience warring with her fear of escalating the situation. Meanwhile, the officers approached Michael, one of them glancing at the lively backyard scene. "We received a noise complaint," the taller officer said, his tone neutral but firm. Michael nodded, his voice calm as he responded, "I'm the homeowner." Is there an issue we need to address? Serena stepped forward then, her presence a quiet but powerful show of solidarity. As the conversation unfolded, the tension was palpable. Karen's call had been vague, her accusations baseless, but the officers had to follow protocol. It wasn't long before one of them recognized Michael. "Wait," the shorter officer said, his eyes narrowing in realization. "Chief Johnson?" The revelation hung in the air like an unexpected gust of wind, shifting the dynamic entirely. Karen, still watching from her window, felt her stomach drop as she noticed the officer's sudden change in demeanor. Her smugness gave way to unease, a crack forming in her carefully constructed facade. Across the street, Priya finally stepped onto her porch, her arms crossed as she observed the scene with quiet determination. The neighborhood was beginning to stir, and the consequences of Karen's actions were only just beginning to unfold. The hum of cicadas filled the uneasy silence as the patrol car came to a stop, its flashing lights casting eerie shadows on the Johnsons' fence. Michael's hand tightened around the spatula, his mind racing through the implications of the officer's arrival. Serena, standing by the table, exchanged a glance with her husband, her smile fading into a mask of quiet concern. Zoe and Marcus, sensing the shift in mood, slowed their playful chase, their giggles replaced by whispered questions. Karen Whitfield, still watching from her window, felt a surge of vindication as the officers exited their vehicle. She imagined herself as the unsung hero of the evening, protecting Maple Street from what she perceived as disorder. What Karen failed to anticipate, however, was the storm she had unwittingly unleashed. The officers Ramirez and Clark, approached cautiously, their expressions neutral but their postures rigid. Michael stepped forward, his calm voice cutting through the tension. "Good evening, officers. Can I help you?" Ramirez hesitated, glancing at the scene behind him, family, food, laughter now tinged with unease. Clark cleared his throat. "We received a call about a disturbance." Michael raised an eyebrow, his professionalism intact. "A disturbance? At a barbecue?" Serena stepped closer, her voice steady but firm. "This is our home." "What exactly was reported?" As the officers fumbled for an explanation, the neighbors began to gather, drawn by the commotion. Among them was Raj Patel, who had recently moved in 2 doors down. Raj, having faced his own share of prejudice as an immigrant, stepped forward. "Officers, I've been here all evening. There's no disturbance, just a family enjoying their night." The crowd murmured in agreement, the mood shifting as Karen's curtains twitched. Her plan to isolate the Johnsons was unraveling, her assumptions laid bare under the scrutiny of a growing audience. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, their professionalism clashing with the realization that they had been summoned on baseless claims. Michael, sensing the opportunity to defuse the situation, gestured toward the grill. "Officers, why don't you join us for a plate? It seems like there's been a misunderstanding." Ramirez hesitated but nodded, his posture relaxing. As the tension eased, Karen's isolation deepened, her actions sparking conversations that would ripple far beyond Maple Street. The officers stepped out of their patrol car, their expressions neutral but their presence commanding. The hum of the neighborhood seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. Michael Johnson, still clutching his spatula, walked toward them with measured steps, his calm demeanor masking the swirl of emotions beneath. Serena moved closer to the children, her protective instincts kicking in as Zoe and Marcus, sensing the shift in atmosphere, stopped their play and clung to her side. "Good evening, officers," Michael said evenly, his voice carrying a quiet authority. The lead officer hesitated, glancing at the festive backyard before speaking. "We received a call about a disturbance," he began, his tone professional but cautious. Michael raised an eyebrow, his gaze steady. "A disturbance? At a family barbecue?" His question hung in the air, pointed but not confrontational. Karen Whitfield, emboldened by the officer's arrival, stepped out of her house and crossed the street. "It was me who called," she announced, her voice sharp and self-assured. "I thought there might be." Her words faltered as Michael turned to face her fully, his presence commanding yet composed. The officers exchanged glances, sensing the undercurrent of tension that had little to do with noise or property concerns. One of the officers, now recognizing Michael, stiffened slightly. "Chief Johnson?" Karen's face paled as the weight of her miscalculation began to sink in. Michael's lips pressed into a thin line, but he maintained his composure. "Yes, that's me. And this is my family, enjoying an evening together," he replied, his voice steady but firm. The crowd of neighbors, drawn by the flashing lights, began to gather at the edges of their driveways. Whispers rippled through the group as the realization of Michael's identity spread. Serena stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. "Is this how we welcome new neighbors here?" Her words struck a chord, leaving an uncomfortable silence in their wake. The officers, now fully aware of the situation, apologized and assured Michael that no further action would be taken. Karen, visibly flustered, stammered an excuse before retreating to her house. As the patrol car pulled away, Michael turned back to his family, his expression a mix of relief and resolve. The barbecue resumed, but the mood had shifted. The Johnsons had been tested, and in their grace under pressure, they had revealed the cracks in the facade of their seemingly idyllic neighborhood. For the residents of Maple Street, this moment was more than just an awkward misunderstanding. It was a mirror, reflecting the biases and assumptions that had long gone unchallenged. And for Michael, it was a reminder of the responsibility he carried, not just as a father or a police chief, but as a catalyst for change in a community that desperately needed it. The patrol car slowed to a halt, its flashing lights casting eerie shadows on the Johnsons' white picket fence. Michael stepped forward, his calm exterior masking the unease simmering beneath. Serena, her hands still dusted with breadcrumbs from the potato salad, stood protectively near the children, her eyes darting between her husband and the officers. Zoe clutched Marcus's hand, their earlier laughter replaced by a confused silence. The officers, a young duo named Officer Daniels and Officer Ramirez, exchanged a glance as they exited their vehicle. They hadn't been briefed on the new chief's address, and their expressions betrayed a mix of uncertainty and discomfort. Karen, still watching from her window, smirked with satisfaction, her assumptions emboldened by the sight of authority on her doorstep. Michael greeted the officers with a steady voice, introducing himself and asking the reason for their visit. Daniels hesitated, fumbling with his notepad, while Ramirez glanced at the festive scene unfolding behind Michael. It was clear no disturbance existed beyond the overzealous imagination of their caller. Ramirez cleared her throat, her tone softening as she explained the complaint. Karen's triumph was short-lived. Ramirez, recognizing Michael's name from department memos, stiffened. "Chief Johnson?" Daniels froze, his earlier confidence evaporating. Michael's calm smile didn't waver, but the weight of the moment pressed heavily on everyone present. As the officers apologized profusely, Serena stepped forward, her voice firm but measured. "This isn't the first time, and we both know it won't be the last," she said, her words cutting through the humid air. Ramirez nodded, visibly uncomfortable, while Daniels avoided eye contact. The barbecue guests, now gathered near the fence, exchanged murmurs of disbelief and quiet support. Across the street, Karen's smug expression faltered. She retreated from the window, her heart pounding as the realization of her miscalculation set in. The Johnsons' resilience and the officers' newfound awareness had flipped her narrative entirely. For the first time, Karen felt the weight of her actions, and the isolation of her prejudice. As the patrol car drove away, Michael turned to his family, his voice steady but resolute. "This is why we're here," he said, glancing at Serena. The tension began to dissipate as neighbors approached, offering apologies, solidarity, and plates of food. The Johnsons' barbecue continued, but the evening had shifted. The seeds of change had been planted, though the road ahead remained uncertain. The patrol car slowed to a stop, its flashing lights casting an eerie glow over the Johnsons' backyard. The laughter had ceased, replaced by a tense silence as neighbors peeked out from behind curtains and hedges. Serena instinctively stepped closer to Zoe and Marcus, her protective instincts kicking in, while Michael handed the spatula to his wife and moved toward the gate, his calm demeanor masking the churn of emotions within. Karen watched from her window, a smug satisfaction creeping across her face. She imagined the officers reprimanding the family, validating her warped vision of order. What she didn't anticipate was the poised figure of Michael Johnson stepping forward, introducing himself with quiet authority. The officers, initially taken aback, exchanged glances as recognition dawned. This wasn't just another call, this was their new chief of police. The tension hung heavy as Michael addressed the officers, his voice steady but firm. He asked for the reason behind their visit, his calm professionalism leaving no room for doubt about his leadership. The officers, now visibly uncomfortable, explained the complaint. Michael's response was measured, his words carrying the weight of lived experience and a deep understanding of the biases that had led them there. Meanwhile, Karen's satisfaction began to waver as whispers spread among the gathered neighbors. Some looked toward her house, their expressions shifting from curiosity to disapproval. The realization of her actions' consequences began to sink in. She wasn't the hero of this story, she was its cautionary tale. As the officers departed, Michael returned to his family, his composure intact but his heart heavy. The barbecue resumed, though the mood had shifted. The Johnsons' resilience in the face of prejudice became a quiet but powerful statement. Across the street, Karen sat alone in her darkened living room, the weight of her actions settling over her like a storm cloud. Unbeknownst to all, this moment was just the beginning. The events of that evening would ripple through Oak Ridge, forcing conversations long avoided and challenging the community to confront its own reflection. For the Johnsons, it was a reminder of why they had chosen to move here, not just to live, but to lead by example, to foster change, and to prove that progress could take root even in the most unlikely of places. The officers stepped into the Johnsons' yard, their presence cutting through the festive atmosphere like a knife. Michael, calm but resolute, greeted them with a firm handshake. "Good evening, officers. How can I help you?" The lead officer hesitated, glancing at the cheerful gathering behind Michael, then at the address on his report. Karen, emboldened by the scene, emerged from her house, her voice sharp. "I called. This noise is unacceptable, and I'm sure there's something illegal going on." Before the officers could respond, Michael calmly reached into his pocket and pulled out his badge. "I'm Michael Johnson, Oak Ridge's new chief of police. This is my family's home, and we're simply enjoying a barbecue with friends." The officers froze, their expressions shifting from authority to shock. Karen's face drained of color, her confidence crumbling as murmurs spread among the neighbors who had gathered to watch. In the moments that followed, Michael addressed the crowd, his voice steady but firm. "This is what prejudice looks like, assumptions made without evidence. But tonight, I choose to see this as an opportunity for growth. Let's learn from this and do better as a community." The officers apologized, retreating quietly, while Karen, humiliated, slinked back into her house. That night, the Johnsons' barbecue became a turning point. Neighbors approached, offering apologies and pledging to foster a more inclusive community. The incident sparked conversations across Oak Ridge, leading to initiatives that challenged biases and promoted understanding. As the grill cooled and the stars emerged, Michael's unwavering grace had not only diffused a tense situation but ignited the possibility of real change. Now, it's your turn to reflect. How can we confront prejudice in our own lives and communities? Let this story inspire action, dialogue, and the courage to stand for what's right. The confrontation on Maple Street unfolded with a mix of tension and grace. As the officers approached, Michael Johnson calmly introduced himself, his voice steady and authoritative. The realization of his identity as Oak Ridge's new chief of police left the officers visibly stunned. Karen Whitfield, watching from her window, felt her confidence falter as her assumptions unraveled before her eyes. The barbecue resumed shortly after, but the mood had shifted. Conversations turned to resilience, community, and the quiet strength of the Johnson family. In the days that followed, word of the incident spread through Oak Ridge, sparking debates about prejudice and accountability. Karen, confronted by neighbors who had grown weary of her divisive behavior, found herself increasingly isolated. For the first time, she was forced to reflect on her actions and the biases that had driven them. Meanwhile, Michael used the incident as an opportunity to foster dialogue, organizing a community forum to address implicit bias and build bridges between residents. The Johnsons, though shaken, chose to remain in the neighborhood, their presence a testament to courage and perseverance. Zoe and Marcus continued to play on Maple Street, their laughter a reminder of the innocence that prejudice seeks to tarnish but can never truly extinguish. Let this story serve as a call to action, challenge assumptions, confront bias, and strive to build communities rooted in empathy and understanding. Change begins with each of us, and with every choice we make, we shape the future.